All right, we are live. I am here with my friend Charissa Carnall, and we are talking about social listening during COVID-19. These are wild times on social media, and I think a lot of people are frozen, not sure what to say, what to do from an organization perspective, or even as if some people that have a personal platform and what do you do? What do you say right now? So Charissa, I would love for you to share a little bit about your social media background and what you're doing today in social media professionally.
Yeah. So, hi, everyone. I came from Western Union Financial Services, where I spent the bulk of my social media time leading the global community management team there. And then I spent almost 3 years at Samford University in Birmingham, Alabama, leading social media for campus-wide. And now, most recently, I am at Teach for America as the National Director of Social Media for Teach for America on the national team. And so, yeah, we're in the middle of it with everyone else, figuring it out. And it's one of those things where you can take all of your experience that you have in working in social media, but then you come across a situation like this that none of us have ever been in. And it's like, okay, that sort of goes out the window because you can always fall back on some of that, but there's so much that we just have never experienced and have never seen and have never, the conversations that we've never had to have before, we're having to have now. And it is remarkable and crazy and stressful and all of that. So I'm in the middle of it with everyone else.
Yeah. So what have you done specifically around COVID-19 from a messaging perspective? And have you changed, how you're responding to things or your strategy since everything started?
Yeah. Yeah. We had to change so much. And we're at the place where a lot of people are now, where it's kind of the new normal for us. We scrambled and we did what we needed to do and, had tight deadlines, and which everything is still moving so fast, as you all know. It's lightning speed. Things are changing by the week. We had a virtual event lined up that we were going to launch early April. And then the conversation on social media shifted so drastically. And so let me back up just a second and give you some context, because Teach for America, so we employ teachers, a lot of them right out of college and a lot of them that are already in their career and want to make a career change. But we employ teachers to teach in schools, and we supply resources, we train them. I mean, they have a degree in teaching when they come out of college, but we give them additional training. And so our primary network in terms of what we call our core members are teachers. And so here we are in this time where teachers can't do what they know to do, and that's traditional teaching. Yeah. And so it has been huge for us, a huge shift. And so one of the things, we're planning this virtual event for early April, partly because we felt like we need to do something for our teachers. And then we were seeing and hearing through just natural listening on social media that parents who are now having to homeschool or help their student with digital learning and remote learning, we were seeing that there was this new appreciation for teachers, right? Because all of a sudden parents were like, whoa,
yeah,
I never knew this. My child could be like this. Yes. Thank you, teacher. And so we had this plan, and then all of a sudden, the next week, the conversation on social media shifted drastically and quickly, literally in a weekend. It shifted from thanking and being and appreciating teachers to this new appreciation for medical workers. Yes. And all of a sudden, it was like, we are absolutely tone deaf if we push this big campaign around teachers when everyone else is talking about medical workers now. If we had done it a week ago, it would have been absolutely made sense, right on time, and absolutely appropriate, but not anymore. And so we had to make another shift, and that was hard to say all this work that we did really quickly to do this exciting thing for our teachers, now we need to wait because it doesn't make sense anymore. And so that is just one of the things where we are, because like I said, our network are teachers, and there's been such a drastic change for them. We are trying to support them the best that we can. And so for social media, what that looks like is we have been pulling. You can actually look at our Twitter account on Teach for America. There are a couple Twitter threads that are just straight resources. So we spent a lot of time in the very beginning in that scramble period of just pulling resources. So where can we find free online resources for teachers and parents who are now teaching at home that they can utilize? And because there's nothing else really out there that is in a good framework. And so what can we do right now? So we just pulled together everything we could. And we started out with Twitter threads. We're now pushing out Instagram stories where we're swipe up link to these resources. And we have categorized it by like STEM is one category and English and literature is another category. And so we've split it up in that way. And then that was like our initial, like, this is what we have to get out. We have to get resources out. And then we shifted to emotional wellness, mental health, because we know that that's an issue also. Especially our teachers who are now doing things they've never had to do before, trying to figure out technology that they haven't had to use before. And not only that, for us at Teach for America, we have a lot of regions where, we have regions where students do not have secure internet at home. And so that was already a problem before, right? So they were having to go home and try to do their homework, and they couldn't because they just couldn't get to the Wi-Fi that they needed to do this. And now that's their only option is online learning. And so, so that adds another level of stress to not only parents and students, but also our teachers who are trying their best to connect with their students. So that's what we started with, was just, let's get resources out there the best that we can. And we pulled a lot.
Yeah. Well, and let me jump into that a little bit. So one of the terms you use that I've heard a lot lately is we don't want to be tone deaf. And I've had a lot of clients reach out to me and a lot of just organizations of how do we avoid being tone deaf? And then what I heard you say is we did that by listening to people so that we could appropriately be a part of the natural conversation that's already happening on social media. I think, and so I want to hear how you listen to them in a very fast way, because generally social media listening is a long-term process. So how do you do that in a short-term context? And then the other question I have or the comment I have is that a lot of leaders I talk to react to one or two people on social media and will just say, everyone is saying this. Well, no, this one person is saying that a whole lot on social media. You need to listen to the whole more than the loud individual. So how do you avoid not reacting to that one person that's really loud? And how are you listening? Like, where did you get that direct feedback that parents, are having this new appreciation and just, all that without it just being anecdotal? Yeah.
So Nils, normally when you and I talk, we talk about listening tools, and that's been, it's a huge resource when listening, are really good listening tools. In this situation, listening tools do not work for this because, and not that they don't work, I say that, and it's not that they don't work, it's that they can't work in the same way to inform your strategy the way that we've talked about before. Yeah. They can work when you're just trying to see what conversations are popping up, but when things are moving so fast, you have to have a really robust and fairly expensive tool to keep up with that. And so my biggest piece of advice is that you have to live social media in moments like this. So you literally yourself, you have to be using all the platforms as a user and understanding that your audience, those that you were connected with, those that you were following, do not represent the whole, but it can help give you an insight into what everyone else is saying and doing. And so what we did is I'm on social media all the time anyway, but right now especially I'm looking at the COVID conversations. And so some of what we were seeing in terms of the teacher conversations were partly because people were tagging us in them just because we're Teach for America, and partly because I was just seeing it just as a user day in and day out. I was seeing the conversations. And so what we do a lot at Teach for America is we say, hey, I need a gut check. And so we'll just check in with somebody else on a team and say, hey, just a quick gut check. This is what I'm seeing. Do you feel the same? Are you seeing the same? And so we're all remote, first of all. So, and not just because of COVID, we were remote, working remotely before that. And so we're all in different regions of the US. And so it's really helpful because I can say, hey, I'm seeing that down here in Alabama, but what are you seeing in New York? And what are you seeing in Chicago and Vegas? And so that's kind of how we did it. It's just really scrappy, to be honest, but it's also really fast and just, it helps us to keep a pulse on everything. And so that's where we use Slack, it's going out of style. And so people are slacking us examples that they're seeing of other things. The video, it makes me laugh so hard. I don't know his name, but I guess he's like a comedian online or something. And he made a video of calling his child's teacher, and he's crying, and he's it just Miss Smith or whatever. He's when he comes back to your class, and he's no, he's coming back, because the teacher's no, I don't think we're going back to school this year, and he's oh no, you're going. So anyway, just things like that people were sending us, and we're just yeah, here it is, we're seeing it. And then that weekend where I personally saw the shift on my own channels. And again, Monday morning, I said, gut check. We had a meeting Monday morning about some things. And I was just here's what I'm seeing. What is everybody else seeing? And it was 100%. We were unanimous across the board that everyone was seeing the same thing. And in terms of the medical workers, and we were okay, we have, and in that moment, this is the important thing. You have to be okay to make quick decisions. And for us, that was hard. We made our first really difficult decision when we made the decision to pull out of South by Southwest, which was early, right? That was we pulled out before South by Southwest we made that internal decision before they officially decided they were not having the conference anymore. But so that was our first difficult decision that we had to make. It's gotten a little bit we're fast now. We just kind of know that this is where we are, but you have to be okay with that. And that can be making a decision to create content around medical workers. Maybe all of a sudden you're seeing that and you go, okay, this is what we have to do now. For us, it was we couldn't necessarily shift to that because of what our what our organization is. That's odd for us. So, and we just that's not our wheelhouse. And that's another thing. We have to know what our wheelhouse is. Where are our strengths? What are we good at? We're not out to provide medical information or suggestions or try to tell anyone what they should or shouldn't do. That is not what we are to. We are to support teachers and parents and students. And so we stay in our lane. So that is how we listened. And again, it's super scrappy. It's just, you just have to live it. And so I think that's where those who are doing social media, but don't really live it on a daily basis, it's really hard. And that's when you come across tone deaf because you're not paying attention to what else is out there. And all of a sudden you have this great idea. Not that it's not a great idea. It's just not great in the moment. It has a time and place, and this may not be the right time and place for that idea.
So I want to take an example of, are you an Office fan at all?
I love The Office.
Okay, so let's take Dunder Mifflin as an example. Your paper company, who probably in this time is business is slowed. They're all working from home. They don't know if like what's going to happen, how long this is going to take. People aren't buying paper as much right now. What do they do on social media where they probably had a month worth of content and pictures of great direct mail pieces and things like that? I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I'm just like thinking about it going, wow,
that would feel tone deaf, if you could
absolutely
that in this season. So how would you see them responding to this situation, listening to what's going on, and really paper is almost that what they do doesn't really directly relate. Like, so like teaching makes sense. Like you correlate that. Paper doesn't necessarily relate, but going quiet is almost even more being more tone deaf. How would you see them responding in a situation like this?
Oh, that's a good one, Nils. That's tough too. So I have like 15 different things that run through my head right now. And I will start by saying, I've never worked for a paper company. So,
me either. Yeah.
So any of these that come out that are just like, no, there's no way that would happen. Apologies ahead of time. So one thing, and again, I'm going off of things that we're seeing. And keep in mind, my lens is very teacher, student, parent focused. Yeah. But one of the things is helping parents with resources and even down to like preschoolers. So I have a 4-year-old who is in preschool, not right now. And my husband has been so wonderful to take care of her because I worked remotely already. My job never stopped.
Yep.
I am still, in fact, I'm working even longer hours now than I was before. For him, he can't do his job right now. So he literally is at home and not doing, like, his job just can't be done remotely.
Yeah.
And so, so he is taking care of her full time. And we've been talking about like schedules and not being so harsh on a schedule, but little ones need schedules. And so like, how do we do that and things like that? What kind of resources can we use? And so for a paper company, I'm bringing it back around, I promise.
Yep. Yeah. Track it. My brain is spinning as you're talking.
Good. Yeah. So Pam is really good with design, right? Like she, took those classes. Yeah. So she could design some, whether it's coloring pages or workbook pages or worksheets, that parents could print out at home. If they can't, go get something from someone, they can print all of these lesson materials out at home that Pam and Dunder could design for them. So that's one thing. Then let's shift. Let's say it's what we were seeing. Okay. So parents are going crazy because they don't know what to do. So we design all of these worksheets and coloring pages and all these fun things for kids. Yeah. I even saw, and you may have seen this, but it was like a little workbook design that someone did for like questions to ask your kid during this time. And it's like this is history that we're living through. And so like just tracking these answers of the age that they are now and putting it in this book of like COVID-19, like things like that like we won't have that opportunity to really do again. Hopefully, like we won't go through something like this again. Yeah. So anyway, things like that. Okay. Then we see the shift to medical workers, right? There's gotta be something that a paper company can do to help with making masks, right? Or like, they got to do something like or the distribution of it or something. Like I'm sure there's something out there. So they figure that out. So on social media, what do they do so obviously they're going to push out their designs on social media free. Yep. By the way, this is free. They are not going to charge for this because while they have to keep their business going, yes. But what's going to happen is that there's going to be a new respect for them later when all of this is over, because a small business owner is going to remember that as a parent, you provided me with these free resources that I was able to use that helped me out. And when I need paper, I'm going to go there because I connect with that on a personal level. Yes. So let's remember that they're not selling these. Yes. And then they're sharing what they're doing, right? Like this, then we switch into this like documentary style of just like documenting what are we doing as a business. And we're not asking people for money or anything like that. We're just saying like, hey guys, we gave you all those resources as parents. And now all of a sudden we realize this is what is needed. And we're going to go help distribute masks to wherever. Yep. So those are the two like first things that pop into my head. Your wheels were spinning, so I'm gonna let you.
Yeah, I think I love. I mean, I think what you're saying here is with social media, we need to be playing the long game, and so we often are always, in Gary Vaynerchuk's language, we're right hooking. We want to sell, and so a lot of people's mindset would be, oh, I just need to pre-sell 2021 paper orders now, and we'll get a discount for them so we can get cash flow right now. But I think what you're saying is, no, people need help right now. They don't need help in nobody's thinking about 2021 right now.
No.
They're thinking, how do I get through April? And so being very, and so a lot of that has to do with part of how do I get work done because my kids are here. And, one of the things that we've really valued as being parents of young kids is so many people are offering online classes for free. And so I'm thinking, do a daily origami. So get Kelly, and Kelly could do such a great daily origami with Kelly. And the fun, I think that you can have building a relationship with your community as a local business in this season is going to, the gold, in the depth of relationship that you're forming in this season. It's tough. I mean, I think this is a season that is tough for everyone. We don't know how to respond, but I think I think just even in this 10 minutes of processing a paper company, that translates to almost any entity where I think even as I brought it up, your mind was like, how, I don't know. And then you let the wheels spin for 5 minutes and it's kind of like, yeah, we can serve our community in a meaningful way right now in this moment that isn't tone deaf. Because if you just kept posting things about direct mail, images and pictures and ideas, that's irrelevant in this moment, and that's tone deaf. And so, really leaning in. I love it. I love it. Any other thoughts to just organizations in general as we're in this season? We don't know how long this is going to last. Our world will probably never be the same, and work is going to look different. And so there's a lot of weight with that, and we don't know when. And I'm here in New York City. It's going to be probably longer for me. But when they just announced school is canceled for the rest of the year here. And so what, as organizations are needing to think a little, because I think it was kind of like we're week to week in this. Now we're having to look more month to month. How in this season, do people stretch that out longer?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know yet, to be honest.
Yeah. Maybe you need to stay week to week and not even think long term. Do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on your organization or your business. What is your business? What is your organization? For us, so we are now at Teach for America, our brains are now shifting to, we have Teacher Appreciation Week is coming up. So we're looking towards that, which is, thankfully is something that is still the same date that it was before. And it happens to be right in the middle of all of this. But we had a lot of live events planned that we now have to make virtual. So the other thing that we did, and I hate that I didn't mention this, but we also started this thing called Pop Class, which is basically, it's really for our recruitment purposes. We typically have in-person events for recruitment, and we can't do those now. And so we're doing these online virtual, sort of like a master class kind of, but we're calling them pop classes. And and we've had really good attendance, which has been crazy. Not only that, but we have also had 99% and sometimes 100% exit surveys where they're saying they would attend another pop class. So that has been huge for us on a branding perspective, on recruitment, across the board. So that's been huge. Yeah. The other thing that we are now thinking about is, we're also thinking about virtual learning, right? So we have a whole nother group of core members coming in, and we're figuring out like, what does that look like for them? What does the fall semester look like? So we're trying to think in that terms, not so much on social media, but this is more just org wide, that we're having to think about that. So we've got Teacher Appreciation Week coming up. College Signing Day is coming up, first week of May. And so we are actually working with Better Make Room we were working with them before on College Signing Day, and now like that's changing. And so we're working on what does that look like. The other thing that we're thinking a lot about is graduation, because a lot of students are not going to have graduations now. Like it's just not going to happen for them. And, you know, for us, like that's such a big moment for a lot of people. And so we're thinking about how can we support the class of 2020 and do something for them on a national level that can be, it'll be different, but it'll be the class that might be the only ones that can say like, we had this. So I can't say a whole lot because we don't have things nailed down yet, but we are working on something really big for that. And going back to Dunder Mifflin really quick, that's something that they could do. They could help print out diplomas and mail them to 2020 graduates and say like, hey, we will take that on and we will do that, like sponsored by Dunder Mifflin. We will send out diplomas that, you know, these students need. So, yes. So we are still kind of thinking week to week right now, because of our organization and kind of where we are. Oh, one other thing that, that we didn't do is, or sorry, that we did do that I didn't mention is in terms of listening. So we talked about listening just on our own personal channels. We actually started creating surveys for our Instagram stories that just native, you know, just asking the native question. And we would ask things like, what are your biggest concerns right now? How are you managing all of this? How are you doing? And those have been so insightful for us. So that's listening just within our audience, right? So we were listening as a whole to kind of see what is everybody else talking about. This is like narrowing this down to just our audience, which are mostly teachers, some alumni, and some potential incoming teachers. And so we have a lot of insight. So we've done that for 3 weeks now. We are using that data a lot internally, and we're continuing to do that over the next. So that's another idea that people could do just to try to get a sense of where are my customers, where's my community, like what's going on with them, and then create content out of that. So take that and go, okay, here's their biggest concern. So let me give you an example. Last week we asked, last week our survey was around mental health and emotional wellness. And we asked, what are you doing to keep up your emotional wellness? And the number one thing that people said, like they had to click respond and like type it in. And we got around 200 responses or so. So it's decent for like our number, right? The number one thing was journaling. Like I didn't expect that. I mean, they're teachers, so maybe I should have, but that was not what I thought I thought they were going to say like yoga or exercise or FaceTiming with friends, which all of those were also in the mix, but journaling was the number one thing. And so we've actually taken that and we're utilizing it in some other areas with some other things that we're doing in terms of just either putting out some content around like getting started on some ideas of what could I journal about? Here are some things that you could journal about, or just, thought starters, potentially even like actual journals. So there's so much that you can then do with that one tiny piece of information that, wow, all of our teachers are journaling all of a sudden, or they were before, but now even more so, and taking that and just running with it however you can.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's a crazy time. And I think and I think for the seats that you and I sit in, the things that, I think 10 years ago, if you were to think of any organization having a social media person, that full-time employee would be crazy. And today it's almost like if you don't have a social media person, it's crazy because of the significance. And I understand that social media traffic on Facebook and Instagram is up 30% or something double. And so it's so core to our new world and our new reality. We don't know what the future holds, but I think the significance of online engagement is only going to become more significant. And I think, Charissa, as we think about social media being social in a social environment, listening is probably the most significant part of a conversation and part of a relationship. We all need to be better listeners. And this has been so helpful for me to just process this season. And I know for so many watching and listening, I'm going to put up your website for people to go check out. And then your social media links are there. So I think you need to go connect on LinkedIn, connect on Twitter, connect on Instagram. With Charissa, how else can people reach out to you, connect, online?
Yeah, across social media, obviously. You can also email me if there's anything that's specific that you just don't really want to talk about publicly on social media. That's fine. Yep. And that's sure you see CharissaCarnall.com here. It's Charissa.Carnall at teachforamerica.org. So feel free to email me there, or you can email me at CharissaCarnall@gmail.com. I have, a bunch of different emails, like a lot of people, I'm sure.
And I want to be clear to everybody that's watching this that Charissa didn't come on. She's not selling anything. She genuinely cares. And she's like me. She's passionate about social media. We talk social media a lot. And we just want to invite other people to this conversation as it's becoming more and more significant in our world. And so Charissa just genuinely wants to help people use social media better. And that's where I'm excited to be locked together and helping people, whatever, we've talked about how we don't know what an official partnership looks like. We just have an aligned passion for social media. And so I'm so grateful that you took the time today to share with all those watching and that will watch in the future. So make sure you reach out to Charissa. Charissa, thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah. Thank you, Nils.